This machine costs $380 million. It weighs 150 tons. Only one company on Earth can build it. Every advanced chip in your phone, your laptop, and every AI data center on the planet was printed by one of these. It is called an Extreme Ultraviolet Lithography System. ASML builds it in Veldhoven, a quiet town in the southern Netherlands. 700,000 separate components go into a single machine. Roughly 90% of them, ASML does not make itself. That last number is the strange part. The most complex machine ever built is mostly assembled from other people's work. One supplier matters more than all the others. Without it, the machine is a very expensive box that prints nothing. We will get to that supplier. First, understand what this machine is actually doing, because the scale is hard to hold. It draws circuit patterns onto silicon wafers. The smallest features the newest version can print are 8 nanometers across. A single strand of human DNA is about 2.5 nanometers wide. This machine works only 3 times larger. To draw at that size, you need light that is almost X-rays, and that light does not occur naturally on Earth. ASML employs more than 42,000 people across 60 locations, but over half of them work at Veldhoven alone. The Veldhoven cleanrooms are where the pieces converge. Almost nothing that arrives there was made in the same country. The lasers come from Germany. The optics come from Germany. The vacuum systems, the stages, the sensors, from thousands of suppliers. About 80% of what the machine costs to build is bought in. ASML's real product is the integration. Der Anschluss as a possible quacious act in Praysen with a hand officiuive bewirstet his purse. That sounds like a weakness. It is actually the reason no rival has copied the machine in 25 years. To clone it, you would have to clone the entire supply chain, including companies that sell to nobody else. ZEISS in Oberkochen makes the optics. It sells them to ASML and to no other lithography company anywhere. Trumpf in Germany makes the laser. It exists in this form for exactly one customer and one application. So the machine is not really built in the Netherlands. It is built across a continent and finished in Veldhoven. Now the harder question. How do you make light with a wavelength of 13.5 nanometers? You start with tin, molten tin, pushed through a nozzle, breaking into droplets barely wider than a red blood cell. Those droplets fall through a vacuum chamber at a rate of 50,000 every single second in a continuous stream. A carbon dioxide laser waits for each one. Not a pointer, a laser with 5 amplifier stages behind it. It amplifies each pulse more than 10,000 times, reaching peak powers measured in megawatts, 50,000 times a second. The laser hits each droplet twice. The first pulse flattens it into a pancake. The second one vaporizes it entirely. What is left is plasma at several 100,000 degrees Celsius. The surface of the sun is 5,500. That plasma glows at 13.5 nanometers. This is the only practical way anyone has found to make this light. It happens 50,000 times a second, continuously, for years, inside a machine that must not be opened. And here is the problem that shapes everything else. Extreme ultraviolet light is absorbed by air. It is absorbed by glass. You cannot focus it with a lens. Every lens ever made would simply swallow it. So the machine uses no lenses at all. Instead, Mirrors. The optics module stands about 1.5 meters tall and weighs 3.5 tons. Inside it are more than 35,000 individual parts and a set of mirrors unlike anything else manufactured. A normal mirror reflects extreme ultraviolet light very poorly. To reflect it at all, the surface has to be layered. More than 100 coating layers, each a few atoms thick, stacked with precision, so the light bounces instead of vanishing. Under the coating, the glass has to be flatter than almost anything humans have ever made. ZEISS uses a specific comparison. Scale one of these mirrors up to the size of Germany. The tallest bump on it would be 1/10 of a millimeter. Polishing a single mirror to that standard takes months. There is no shortcut, and there is no second supplier. The whole optical path runs in vacuum, because air itself would erase the light between one mirror and the next. This is the part ASML does not make. Buy the mirrors from Oberkochen or do not build the machine. Which brings us to the moment all of it has to be put together, and the logistics get genuinely absurd. A single high numerical aperture machine ships in 250 crates, not boxes, crates on freight aircraft. It weighs 150,000 kilograms. Older systems needed roughly 7 Boeing 747s to deliver. Nothing arrives assembled, because the machine cannot survive being moved once it is aligned to the tolerances it needs. So it is built twice, once in Veldhoven to prove it works, then taken apart and rebuilt inside the customer's fab. That second build takes about 6 months, with roughly 250 engineers working on one single machine. 250 engineers, 6 months, one machine, before a single commercial wafer has been printed on it. Then it starts moving. The wafer stage repositions itself 20,000 times a second, under vacuum, without losing alignment. It has to hit the same spot on the wafer every time, at a scale where a fingerprint is a mountain range. More than 100 wafers pass through every hour. Each one carries hundreds of chips. Each chip has billions of transistors. ASML has been doing this at scale for years. In one recent year, it shipped 449 lithography systems. The newest generation is called high numerical aperture. Its optics gather light at a wider angle, and that changes the numbers. Resolution goes from 13 nanometers to 8. Transistors get about 1.7 times smaller. Density goes up nearly threefold. The price goes from around $183 million to $380 million per machine. Intel has committed to it for the processes after 18A. SK Hynix has ordered. TSMC is waiting until around 2030. Total early orders were reported at 10 to 20 machines, with ASML aiming to build 20 every year by 2028. 20 machines a year. That is the ceiling on how fast the world's most advanced chips can physically scale. The first high numerical aperture system was delivered in December 2023. The industry is still learning to use them. Here is what stays with me. 90% of every lithography machine sold in the last 30 years is still running. These things are built to outlive the chips they print, the phones those chips go into, and the companies that bought them. One machine, 700,000 parts, a continent of suppliers, and a mirror polished for months that nobody else can make.